Okay, before the podcast starts, I actually want to say that some files of my video is corrupted, so it may be freezing for a little bit, but the end product is pretty fine, I guess. I hope so. It's my one of my first videos, so you can hope that I got the best quality on me. And that will definitely change in the future due to experience and some equipment. But yeah, it was a real nice podcast. Shout out to Ft.Zakqary, real nice guy. Go to his YouTube channel, just drop some subscriptions, like his videos, and yeah, enjoy the podcast. Yeah.
Zach. I go by Ft.Zakqary online. I just started playing Melee pretty recently, and that's the first fighter game that I've ever really played. I've been a content creator on YouTube and then Twitch for a long time, and I just sort of, when I started playing Melee, decided to make it a thing on my channel because whatever game I'm playing at the time, I'll make videos on. And the videos did really well with Melee. People seem to like the idea of a new person coming to Melee, a beginner trying to learn the game. And people liked that concept of watching me get better from video to video and found it very interesting. So I've continued making Melee content. I've been playing the game for about 3 months now, and I've put out a video 2 or 3 times a week throughout that entire period.
Yeah. So basically, yeah. The way I found you is just basically, I think I found you through Twitter. Yeah. I found you through Twitter.
Yeah, you definitely messaged me on Twitter. I didn't know how you found me, though.
I saw a video of you on Twitter, a sneak peek, so I just got into the channel and I watched a couple videos. And at first it was okay, we share similar thoughts because yeah, the way you thought is pretty interesting because it's very similar to mine. You just want to play against very good player directly by the beginning, so you don't end up being a fucking casual.
Right.
And yeah, so I just thought, okay, why not message him? It doesn't hurt to message anyone.
Right. Yeah, I think playing good players from the beginning was yeah.
The problem I have with Street Fighter as an example is it's just slow pass. You have to learn the frames and that's it. That's just how you basically become good. There's no technical, okay, there's some technical stuff you could do, but it really since Street Fighter 5 it really just got really fucking easy, and it is so dumb. And yeah, that's the good stuff with Melee, because you actually have to learn a lot in order to just win.
Yeah, I think Melee is awesome because how creative you can be. Other fighting games, you learn those timings and those combos and that's it.
Yeah.
Melee, you can do some dumb shit. I have an alter ego called No Tech Fox, where I just play Fox online and I don't know anything about Fox, and I can beat decent players. I beat None, if you know who that is.
Oh yeah, I actually don't know now.
In a match, he's top 10 in the world with Fox, just because he had no idea what the hell to do against me, because that can just be a strategy. You can just be dumb and creative and beat decent players.
Yeah,
whereas
that's actually
you can't go into Street Fighter and just do dumb shit and think you're ever gonna win. It just won't happen. Melee, you get that opportunity to be creative about it.
Yeah, that's the thing, because at a certain point when you reach a high level of Melee, I think it is quite it gets way easier to read your opponent, because you actually know what they're doing. But
right.
If they I've seen the video of you having 3 different coaches, where the first one was telling that how the enemy should know anything about you if you don't know it by yourself.
Yeah.
And that's it is some sort of strategy. Yeah, I can totally agree. You have so much freedom in Melee.
Yeah, I think a big reason that people differ so much, playing against one Fox and another Fox is totally different, and I think a big reason is Melee guides are terrible. Everything you can look up to learn about a character, when I first started and I wanted to learn about Puff, you cannot find a Puff guide that just actually teaches you what moves you have and when to use them. Every guide on a character is all about the mental of it. They're just oh, you need to think about this specific situation this specific way. No one just straight up breaks it down. So what happens is new players come in they just sort of watch a bunch of people who are really good at their character and try and imitate what they do. And they sort of just use their moves randomly until they figure out situations that they work and they don't. And it's like, I don't even know how to explain it. It's like if you left a bunch of toddlers alone and told them to learn to ride the bike on their own, they would all find some weird way to ride the bike because you didn't teach them how to do it properly. And no one teaches you how to actually play Melee. You just sort of figure it out by playing. So everyone has these crazy, like, creative, unique play styles because there's no, like, standard, because no one teaches it properly. So, like, it's really cool because everyone comes out with these totally different things. Like, for example, I've played against a lot of Foxes. Obviously, as a Puff, Fox is, like, your least favorite matchup. It's so annoying because they're so strong against Puff. And I've learned to deal with Fox over time from playing against him a lot and, like, good strategies against him. And yesterday, in the GOML qualifier, my one game off, I was one game off from being top 128, and I played against a Fox who their entire strategy was they would run to one side of the stage, laser a ton of times, and then when I got towards them, run to the other side and laser a ton of times. Do that over and over again until I was at like 80%, and then up smash me once and kill me. And it's like, I've never encountered that before. Like, that was not playing against Fox. That was insane. That was like someone invented a new character that I just had to play against. And they were good at it, and they destroyed me because I just had no idea what to do against it. And that's crazy to me. Like, Fox is the most popular character in the game. I've been playing for 3 months, and that was the first time I had ever played against someone who played like that. And I'm sure there's more. There's, like, tons of other ways to play the characters that you just never encounter.
Is Smash hard to learn? Like, do you consider Smash hard to learn?
It depends what you mean by hard. Like, it's difficult in that it takes a lot of work, but I don't think anything in particular has been difficult, right? Like, and maybe that's because I'm coming from the perspective of a Puff player, but Puff does have some crazy technical shit that people don't appreciate. That I like. Short hop back air, jump back air is fucking crazy. It's like frame perfect timing, and Puff players just do it consistently all the time. So I think in that way, like, it's just something you have to practice a lot. I don't think it's particularly difficult, because I think, like, difficult implies that only certain people can do it, and that, like, you have to have this knowledge and, like, be intelligent or whatever. I think the dumbest person in the world could get good at Melee with just practicing a ton. So I don't think Melee is difficult, at least Melee. I don't know about all of Smash. I don't think Melee is difficult to learn. I just think it takes a ton of work.
I mean, like, compared to all other Smash games, Melee is probably the hardest, but it is like, Melee has always had, like, a competitive base. Like, it didn't start off from a casual player base and then went to competitive. It is like, always has been competitive.
Right. Yeah, there's just so much in Melee. Like, even something as, like, commonplace as wave dashing. You think about it, like, no mechanic exists in any other Smash game that's that fundamental to the game. That's this thing to learn. And then even if you want to try and compare something, well, then you have to say, well, what about L canceling? And then you have to, like, compare the other things. So, like, even just to play Melee at any, like, not even good, not even really bad, to play Melee and not be horrible, you have to know how to wave dash and L cancel well, which are things that take weeks to, like, months to get decent at and consistent at. So it's like, just to get started with the game, there's so much crap that you have to learn that makes Melee, like, a big grind. It makes it a lot of work. But it's not difficult. Like, when you break it down, wave dashing is 2 buttons, essentially. Yeah. And L canceling is 1 button. You just have to do them with the right timing, and that's it. It seems difficult because it's hard to get the timing down, and it takes a while. But once you practice it, like, pro players wave dash, not even, like, mid-level players wave dash without even thinking about it. It's not a concern for them, because it's not actually that hard.
Yeah, because, like, when I started, like, playing Melee, the first time, because since I play, like, fighting games, a lot of fighting games, I just hop, like, straight into the training mode and search up from essential text, because in Tekken you have to be, like, good with the 3D movement, the backdashes, everything. And since I have, like, the competitive nature, yeah, you can call it, like, competitive nature of, like, competitive games, fighting games in general, it came like pretty quickly like to me. I had like a pattern that I know how to like learn. At first I was going with L canceling because in every fighting games better frames is just like the way to win.
Right.
So I just like learned L canceling at first, and then I was going with wave dashing, SDIing. That's actually something I learned like in the training mode pretty quick, but implementing that in the game is just like a whole new level, because you have to think about when's the timing to do like wave dashes, because you can wave dash into an enemy and then you're basically fucked.
Yeah.
Or you can just like SDI in the wrong direction and then just like SD.
Right.
It is pretty weird considering how different the learning curve is in Melee. But like that's actually what's driving me, because it is a challenge I want to learn.
Yeah, and the great thing about Melee is I don't know if I'd call it the great thing, but there's two different like moments of learning something. Like, yeah, you can learn how to wave dash, but using it in game is so different.
Yeah.
Because it's like, yeah, okay, I know how to wave dash. I sort of understand what this does, but like, you could never utilize it in the game. When I first was starting to utilize wave dashing, it was just like, I don't even know. I think I would do it between stocks, like when I had killed them and they were still respawning, I would do it. Because it's like, there's no other time I can think to do it. Like, what do you do? And then you have to learn like specific things that they can do with wave dashing, and like, there's a whole separate thing in Melee where it's like you can learn how to do something mechanically, but then you have to figure out how to implement it. And that part is so much harder. Like, you could just sit in training mode for like the first 6 months you played Melee and be able to do all of the tech that pro players can do at the level that they can do it, and you could go into a game and get destroyed by someone who doesn't even know how to tech at all, because just like the using things is so much harder than just knowing how to do them. So there's those two separate parts, which I think makes it a little bit more challenging to learn the game, because you sometimes feel like, I know how to do this, I know why it's useful, and I'm just not using it in game, and I'm not getting better with it.
Yeah, totally. That has been like always, I think, that thing that kept me away from Melee when I started it, but when I really had like the dedication to start it, it is not that hard. It is just like muscle memory basically.
Right.
Because yeah, at first you don't have to like play at a pro level directly. It is always better, like in every competitive game, to just like take it step by step. That's what many people don't like acknowledge. You have to just like get a feel of the game first before you can just like pull off some. If you don't know how the game works, then just like don't try to break the game basically by doing hard techs.
Right.
You have to pull like one by one string by one, and the thing with Melee is there's so much stuff to learn that you can get like actually really confused and overwhelmed at first. But you have to consider even the top players are limiting themselves in order to have like a clean gameplay, or some people that are always going for mind reads, they don't have the time to just like do all the techs and turn on like the 20xx mode. And they have to actually like think about the matchup, know how to approach, because since you said it, like everyone plays differently, even if it's the same character. That was like the biggest problem for me, was because I've always thought because one matchup will be always the same. Till I realized it isn't. Like it totally isn't. Like every matchup varies so hard. It is pretty interesting.
Yeah, that's definitely something you have to realize. I mean, and that's something like, I don't think you even realize even if you tell yourself you realize it, you still don't until you really encounter it. Like, I think until yesterday when I played against that fox who only lasered, I played against all foxes the same way. Like, they all played somewhat different, but you could still apply like the same ideas to beating them. And then you play against that, and it's like, this is not the same at all. Like, this is a totally different character, essentially, that I'm playing against. And I also think you just don't get that in other fighting games from playstyle. Like, I don't think you ever load into Street Fighter against the same character, and it's a totally different matchup. Like, people may utilize moves more, like people may prefer using a certain move over another move, like more commonly, but I don't think anyone's ever playing the game so differently that it's just you can't even comprehend what's going on.
Yeah. That is what like is the magic of Melee, because you're not limited to anything. Even like if some tier lists tell you you're limited to this type of character, it does make sense, because there are many Luigis in top 10, top 100. Like, it is. Tier lists don't matter in Melee, to be honest.
No.
Okay, I could say Bowser is bad. Yeah, that's like Bowser.
But
okay.
Even that, like, even there are Bowsers who win locals and who do well at majors. Like, it's like, okay, the tier list, I think the best way I've heard it put is a tier list is just a list of how much effort you need to put in to be good.
Yeah.
Like, Bowser is the bottom of the tier list, but that doesn't mean that you can't be top 100 with Bowser. It's just going to take more effort than being top 100 with Fox. Getting top 100 with Fox is fucking easy. You just grind your tech skill, and then you learn a couple mind games, and you can just perform well at tournaments. Yeah. I'd say the same, like, Puff, Falco, like, that shit's easy. In comparison to, like, the amount of shit that you need to learn and practice for, like, Yoshi and Pikachu, or Luigi. So the tier list, I don't think is, like, the absolute hard lock of like, this is the characters that you can play at a high level. It's just, these are the easiest characters to play at a high level. That's why a character's good, because their kit allows you to play them at a high level without having to go so in depth to learn all the crazy things about it.
Yeah. I mean, like, there are like pretty understandable things in the tier list, like, let's say Bowser's Stone Throw or so. It's just like, if your kid like needs something that hasn't like in his kit, it drops down by the tier list for sure, because you have to play like without many great tools that other characters like would have.
Right.
But it's actually like every character has like a point where it's the strongest. Let's say DK. Like, I was watching a video and every character is like as strong as at some type of level. DK right. has like the best what you could say like up throw combo tool or some shit like this.
Yep.
And actually every character, like Ness has his thunder jacket glitch, his yo-yo glitch. Like, there are some tools on the low tier characters that many high tier characters wish they would have.
Right.
It is just like harder to get out, because performing the yo-yo glitch isn't that easy, but it is. Like, compared to a real match, it is.
Yeah. There's a lot of like low tiers have tools. I don't think there's a single character in the game that doesn't have something unique to them. Even like the clone characters, like Marth, Roy. Like, Roy combos differently than Marth.
Yeah.
Roy wants to be right next to you because he does more knockback from like the close side of his sword, whereas Marth wants to be further away from you to get the tipper.
Yeah.
So like even like the clone characters in the game, there's no character in the game, no matter how low up tier, even Bowser has unique things to him. So I don't think there's like any character in the game that you can say just objectively doesn't have the tools to perform, or like needs more tools. I mean, like, obviously you would be better off with having more good moves to utilize, but I don't think that it's just like impossible. They all have something. There's no reason to not play a character if you enjoy them. Like, if you enjoy Bowser, there is no reason to not play Bowser. There's just like, there's no character in the game that is Bowser but better. And I think that's an interesting thing with other Smash games, where like Smash Ultimate has, for example, Marth and Lucina. They are pretty much, all of their moves are the exact same.
Yeah.
The difference between them is the timing and the knockback of their moves, which makes Lucina better than Marth. In Ultimate, there is no reason to play Marth, because Lucina is the exact same character with more knockback and more damage. So
Yeah.
there's no reason to play Marth. That doesn't exist in Melee. There is no character that just has a better version of themselves in all ways. There are times where Roy is better than Marth. When you're really close up, Roy is better than Marth. There are times where you can make like low tiers work like that. So if you want to play a character, that's why I think the tier list just doesn't matter. Because if you want to play a character, you can just play the character, man. Like there's no reason not to. Whereas in Ultimate, I think if you wanted to play Marth, I think you're probably just stupid, because there's another character that's the exact same and just better. But I don't think that exists in Melee, really.
Yeah.
I think people would argue against that, but I think there just isn't really any of those clones that are the exact same.
Yeah, I mean, even like if we compare Falco to Fox, like
Right.
his shine is completely different. His down air spikes, like Falco's down air spikes.
Laser.
It is-
Yeah, Fox and Falco are definitely like a lot of the characters in Melee are clones because they were lazy and didn't have that much time, so they just had like 15 characters and then they doubled it by just making clones of every character.
Yeah,
Because like half the characters in Melee are just very similar. Like you've got Mario, Dr. Mario, you got Peach, Zelda, you've got Sheik, Samus, Pikachu, Pichu, Roy, Marth, Fox, Falco, Kirby, Puff. There's so many that are just the same. But all of those characters, even though they're a clone, they have like similar hitboxes, similar moves. They are literally made from the other character. Like the Nintendo has admitted, they literally just took the other character and then changed a couple things. They're still unique and have good things about
yeah,
them.
totally. And that's a good thing about like Melee, because I don't want like too many characters in a game. Because
Yeah.
why the fuck will they have like too many characters and they all play like all the same? And at some point,
that's what sucks about Ultimate.
yeah, like they prefer quantity over quality, obviously.
Right, and I think that's like it's like the Smash player syndrome, where it's like everyone wants to be unique, and it's hard in Melee because there's really technically only so many ways to play a particular character. Like even though there are a lot of unique ways to play it, it's like nothing compared to like Ultimate, where you have like 100 characters to choose from. And everyone who plays Smash sort of wants their own way to do it. So people in Ultimate will just choose a character that they think not that many other people play, and they'll just try and get good at that character to have that identity. I think that's like a shitty, I don't know, attitude that doesn't bode well. And then there's also the fact that like having 100 matchups to learn makes the game worse. Like even Melee, 20 years old, you're still discovering new things about the matchups, and there's only really like 10 legitimate matchups. So imagine with Ultimate, with 100 matchups, 100 times 100, you're talking like 10,000 different potential matchups that can happen in any given game. And like it would, by the same standards, it would take like more than 100 years. It's going to take a century to even mildly understand all of the matchups at a decent level. So I think that just lessens the quality of the game. And then, like you said, there's so many clones. There's so many characters that just are the exact same. Like Melee,
Yeah.
they're similar. There's so many characters in Ultimate that are the exact same. Even if not like the exact same, then there's like on premise. Like Melee has one projectile spammer, and that's Link. Or Link or Young Link. It's just spam, arrow, bomb, boomerang. Ultimate has like 50. Like half of the cast of Ultimate are just people who just throw out grenades or rocket launchers or just who knows what. And it's just so, for one, it's unfun to play against, but it's just like, I don't know, it's so unnecessary. There's just so much in Ultimate just because I think it makes sense because it's intended for kids. So it's like eye candy. The more characters they include, the more people they're likely to attract who are like watch those shows or like those games that the characters came from. So it makes sense from like a marketing wise, but as far as like playing a game at a competitive level, I think Melee's so much better just having those limited characters, because it makes it so that you can understand it way
Yeah,
better.
totally.
You know?
Because if there will be like if I will play like Ultimate, I couldn't like even though like even if I play like 1 month of like Smash, I couldn't even imagine how I should like approach an enemy without like knowing what they're doing, what they're about to do. Because
Right.
even though there are like many like clones, there are still some unique characters like Snake, to be honest.
Yeah, Snake's impossible to approach
Yeah, you can
like,
approach
don't
it.
know that
Yeah,
until you learn the matchup. And a lot of characters are like that.
and that's what's like so different, because having a limited like character pool and make it fairly unique, or really unique, because like you can compare Kirby with Jigglypuff. It is insane to think about it.
Right.
Like they share some similar movesets, but like let's say the back air's also disjoint on Kirby.
Mm.
And yeah, I think so. I might have to correct myself. No, I do think so. But they still have like you can really get familiar with a matchup pretty easily, because you only see a couple of matchups. Like when we played like for the stream, you actually didn't know about like Game Watch, because
Yeah. Because no one plays Game & Watch.
yeah, that's totally it.
But that being said, after I play against Game & Watch 5 or 6 times, I'll understand how to approach, how to deal with things.
Mhm.
I sort of treated it just like any other character, and that worked out okay, just because I think I have more time in the game than you. But like, in general, it's just like you just sort of have to learn that. But if you imagine, I'm 3 months into the game, and I've played a lot. Like, I play a lot. And yesterday, I encountered a way of playing Fox for the first time, and today I encountered a new way of playing, or I've encountered an entirely new character I've never really played against Game & Watch before. So I'm 3 months into the game, playing a lot, like every day, and I've still encountered 2 new matchups in the past 24 hours that I didn't know how to play against. Now imagine Ultimate, say the same amount of time, 3 months into the game. Every single game you play is a new matchup, because not only are there 100 other characters that you, even if you only play one character, and you imagine, okay, I need to learn how to play against these 100 other characters with only my one character, then you have to think about that. Well, there's different ways of playing them. So then you have like probably more than 1,000 different matchups that you have to learn for your one character. And then God forbid you ever want to switch characters, then you have to learn 1,000 more matchups.
Yeah.
It's just insane. There's no room to get really good at the game, to discover stuff, to like get really in depth with a character, because you just have to learn how to play against all this crap.
Yeah. Especially like I've always liked the having a limited, let's say, character pool in like every competitive game, because the amount of work you have to get into leveling a character could be much more into like many different ways. You could instead of leveling a character, you could just find a new tag or a specific tag you could do with your character, or just like be more specific at some other points rather than just like looking at some characters. Of course, having a bigger character pool is just like increasing the possibility to find a character you actually love to play.
Right.
But I mean, everyone who plays like fighting games are actually like watching the tier list, so they don't give a fuck anyways about whether they like a character or not. So
Yeah.
that's basically
Everyone
how I
plays
started
Fox 'cause
playing.
he's good. Yeah, people don't play Fox. For the most part, I'd say people don't play Fox because they think, oh, I love this character, and this character is so fun to play. Most people play Fox because he's the best character in the game, and he has the most depth tech-wise. And that's essentially it.
And that's the thing that I love about Fox, is that he has like so many different tags, and this whole 20xx themes. I was watching like a contest where they pull out like some stupid ass tricks, and I was like, hell yeah, I want to do that. I'm gonna do that. And I'm actually, that's like the only way to think about when playing like Fox, is just like to get like this whole tech stuff.
Yeah, I mean, and that's with any character for sure. I mean, you have that same idea with Puff. So like, I'm 3 months in now, and I still have four moves that I have to implement. I don't use up tilt. I don't really use nair. I don't use drill. I can't even remember the last one. But like, 3 months in, all of the tech that I've learned on a character that's considered to not have that much tech, and I still have 4 more moves to implement and a couple more rest setups that I have to learn how to do consistently before I can even say that I can play Puff at like a mid level.
Yeah.
And it's just like the amount of depth that's there within that character, you wouldn't be able to discover that if you had to think about, 100 different matchups, 1,000 different matchups, and have all these characters. And also, there's just not as much depth, I think, in other games. Maybe it's yet to be seen, because I'm sure in the beginning of Melee, no one really, appreciated the depth of it, how much stuff there is to do and learn and technical stuff. But at least from my perspective, it seems like Ultimate, like you sort of just figure everything out pretty soon. Like there aren't that many crazy things to discover and learn. Like we still learn crap about Melee. Like I think Squid just discovered like a week ago that you could SDI out of Falco up air, which is like, how have we not? The game's been out for 20 years. How have we not known that?
Yeah.
And he just found out that with frame perfect timing, you can SDI out of Falco up air. And it's like, okay, well that's crazy. I feel like that doesn't exist in Ultimate at all either.
Yeah.
It's like
don't.
The characters are just simple. Like they are what they are, which is good for like a casual fighting game. Maybe that's the problem. We're comparing Ultimate in the way like we're expecting like competitiveness and depth and all this kind of thing. But I mean, Smash has always just been intended to just be a casual party game.
Yeah.
And maybe that's why like maybe we have unfair expectations, because Ultimate is made to be the ultimate party game, and in that way it succeeds. I lived at a house with 40 people, and I had people who had never played video games in their life pick up a controller and play Smash Ultimate, and they could find a character they liked, they could have fun with the game, even if they were terrible at it. So I think in that way Ultimate succeeds, and I think we just don't like Ultimate because we love the competitiveness and the depth of Melee. But that's, at the end of the day, that's really not what Ultimate's supposed to be. So I think it does a good job for what it's supposed to be.
Yeah, I mean, like Smash like wasn't even like meant to be like.
Yeah, well, Melee wasn't meant to be competitive either, but they fucked that up. So
64 was already competitive. Then there was like Melee, the most competitive of them all. And then they tuned it down with Brawl, like having the slip feature.
Yeah, and then the community said F you and made Project M, just made Brawl into Melee so that they could keep playing it competitively.
Yeah. And yeah, you can clearly see that Nintendo doesn't like the competitive nature of the Smash games, because they canceled like an Evo event. Didn't they cancel like an Evo event?
Yeah, well they tried. Melee raised like $80,000 because it was a competition to see who would make it into Evo in 2013. Yeah. And Melee raised like $80,000 to make it in, and then Nintendo was like, actually, you're not allowed to stream Melee. We don't give you the rights. And everyone protested. And Nintendo eventually backed down and said, okay, fine, you can stream it. But like the fact that that's just crazy. Like your community cares so much about the competitive environment that they raised $80,000 for charity so that they could compete at a tournament. And Nintendo was just like, nah, we don't want that. Yeah. Like we don't allow that. That's how against it they are. The whole thing. I don't know. It's crazy.
That's what I completely hate about like every game, basically competitive game nowadays. Like let's take Street Fighter as an example. There was Third Strike, which had like the parry features, which had like way less frame linking, so you had to just like be frame perfect for some sorts of combos. And then there was like Street Fighter 5, where you had like 8 frames of input lag, like totally 8 frames of input lag. It was really controversial, and it is really dumb to reduce like the skill gap, because reducing the skill gap doesn't make a shitty player that good. Like if they don't want to learn, they're not going to be any better than some good players. Even by reducing the skill cap and making like everyone, or make like the casual player base advance them in order to like beat some better NPCs, but they're not able to beat like some pro players.
Yeah. I mean, when you try and reduce the skill gap with that kind of stuff, like how they made Ultimate floaty and everything, and like combo, it's impossible to combo in Ultimate because everyone just bounces so far away from you. It's like everyone is playing Puff. What they do is they don't really raise the skill of a new player. They just lower the skill of how good a pro player can be, which is really sucky. Because like to accomplish what they did in Ultimate of having people be able to all play the game no matter what without having to
Yeah.
learn tech skill. They didn't make new players better. They made good players worse.
Yeah,
Like the
totally.
best players in Ultimate are really just, they're not that good at the game. Like they know timings well and they make good decisions, but that's all there is to it. Whereas you like compare that to like a high level melee player and you're talking about like crazy amounts of shit and dedication and effort to be that good at that game. So it really sucks, I think, when they try and do that, because their intention, their goal is to make, everyone better, but they're really just making the top players worse, and then the normal players stay about the same.
Yeah, and that's like the thing. If you're a casual, you don't run into a pro player or into some competitive players. Like Smash 4 did it the best, like out of all Smash games, because they had, I don't know about Ultimate, so I can't tell you. There's like Elite Smash, which differentiates like casual players from players who are actually like trying.
Well, but yeah.
Yeah, and
it does a bad job, but
it does a bad job, but at least like it gives something. So there's like the mark where you can just like differentiate. I don't know how to call it.
Yeah.
Differentiate like the casual player base with the like actual competitive player base. So I don't like understand why even like lowering a skill gap will do any good like in any games, because they just like take away freedom from both casual and like pro gamers, because casual players, they don't give a fuck if there's some wave dashing, if you can wave shine or some shit like this. They just look at the videos and they think like, yeah, I'm not going to do that shit. I'm just like throwing some fireballs with Mario. They're not like even interested in doing anything.
Yeah.
Like if they're not committed to be like some competitive, they're not even looking out for something.
I think you could do that in Melee. I don't think Melee's away from that. I watched earlier because I was just going through like all the streams on Twitch of people who are streaming Melee, and there was like these two, I don't know, they sounded young, and they were playing Fox versus Fox, and neither of them knew how to do anything. Like they didn't even know how, like teching as in like when you fall down you can tech to not hit your back on the ground. Yeah. And they were having fun with it. It's just like casual fighting each other, just essentially button mashing, throwing out random moves. So I don't think Melee is beyond that. I definitely think there is that casualness to it, but the game's so old that it's like the casual player base has moved on. Yeah. If you played Melee casually, like then you probably just switched to Brawl and then Smash 4 and then Ultimate, because why wouldn't you? Like if you're playing it casually, if you don't care about wave dashing, if you don't care about L canceling and the depth of that, then you just move on. Yeah, so now Melee doesn't really have casual players because there's no reason for them to be here. So everyone in Melee seems super competitive and hardcore, which kind of makes the game seem a little less friendly and welcoming because everyone's so fucking good. It just doesn't exist. Like Ultimate, the majority of people who play Ultimate are like 12-year-olds who have it on their Switch and are just very bad at the game but think it's fun and play with their friends. Smash, the average player is like really good, like insanely good, because casual players don't exist anymore. Yeah,
and that's like the thing. It doesn't have to be like competitive, because Smash, like all the Smash games, they provide a place for everyone. If you want to be competitive, you can play Melee. If you want to have fun, you can play Ultimate. If you're playing Ultimate competitively and want a challenge, you switch to Melee, of course. And if you want to have fun, you just gonna switch from Melee to Ultimate. And that's like the thing. The good thing about Smash is, if you wanna like compete at some tournaments, like there still are some Melee tournaments. The problem like with other fighting games is, as long as a new title comes out, the old game instantly, like nearly instantly dies.
Yeah.
And it's really sad because, let's say, like my favorite fighting game is like Third Strike, because it is like really hard to play, and the whole player base is really competitive. But the scene is like dying out because, yeah, good luck finding a match. Like there's still like some online. You can play it online, but it is really like heartbreaking how you can't just like on every like competitive games just like switch to a new title or just like find the title you are the most familiar with. Yeah. And that has been like the good thing with Smash, because I mean Nintendo didn't intend it to just like have Melee as a competitive game and just like keeping it alive. They didn't intend it to just like keep Melee alive, but the community just like kept it alive, and that has been like the best, like totally the best thing about Melee, because the amount of people like caring about like a game that is as old as me, like it is basically insane, because you have to acknowledge that Project M came out, like Slippy came out, and still all these years prior they still get updated and some stuff like this. Like netplay was always a thing on Melee, but then Slippy came out randomly, which basically fucked the whole FGC community because it has like the best internet rollback netcode.
Yep. Yeah, now everyone plays Melee.
Yeah, because fuck, I don't know. Having a company that lives like for 20 years and more, like 30 years, 40 years, and they still fuck up the netcode, it is pretty sad.
It's crazy that one guy, you know, working like not even part-time, created better netcode than Nintendo ever has, with like their fighters that have like millions of players in comparison to Melee. It is crazy that they screw it up that bad, because I've played Ultimate online. It's just not fun. It's so laggy all the time, because the majority of people you're playing against, again, in Ultimate, are the average crowd is 12-year-olds who are playing on their Switch, and they're not connected to Ethernet at all. They're definitely playing Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
So it's hard to play.
Yeah, I mean, the intention of Ultimate, like what Nintendo intends to do with the game, is perfectly made, like, because the player base Nintendo wants to reach, they totally like reach the goal. Like as a casual perspective, Ultimate is like the greatest casual game that there ever is, like.
Right.
And they just like, I don't know, did they make like wave dashing in Ultimate, but just like a little bit like similar to wave dashing but worse?
There's wave landing, so wave like landing? Basically you can't air dodge right after you jump, so you can't wave dash. You haven't been able to wave dash since Melee.
Yeah.
But you can wave land, so you can air dodge as you're falling, which is just all it is like a positional mix-up. It's just like, oh, you thought I would land here, but I slid over here. And that's essentially all there is. There's not really any depth to it.
Yeah. I mean, like every Smasher agrees that Melee, like Ultimate is by far the best, like, title to play as a Melee player. Like, you couldn't play Smash 4 because it was very poorly made at like balancing stuff.
Yeah,
I mean,
I tried Brawl. I played Brawl with a friend to be like, you know, casual about it. It's just not as fun.
No.
My question is, where do you go from Ultimate? Because like Ultimate has a crazy, like, how many? Hold on. Ultimate has a crazy amount of characters, right?
Yeah.
And every Smash game, okay, 74, but then there's more, you know, with the packs and stuff. So it's probably nearing like 90 by now. So the question is, like, where do you go from there? Because every Smash game is built on the one before it. Like, Brawl didn't have all of the characters from Melee, but most of them. Smash 4 had most of the characters from Brawl. Ultimate had most of the characters from Smash 4. Like, what is the next step? Is it just the same game with better graphics and more characters? Like, that's just crazy. Or do you think they're done with it? Like, Ultimate is just like, they're gonna update it, add characters like they have been, and that's it for Smash.
I think Ultimate was a really big like marketing stuff. Like they just had like a big marketing influence, because like what they presented is that they will like fuse every Smash game and just like make it one.
Right.
So every player base should be happy with it, with the outcome.
Right. And they weren't.
But they obviously weren't, but for like many players, like Smash 4, Brawl, even like 64, you could say, nah, no, not 64. 64 is too competitive for that shit. Yeah, Smash 4, Smash Brawl, they did a really good job on implementing like Ultimate, because Smash 4 was really slow compared to every Smash game.
Right.
It was way too slow, and they made it a little bit faster since they just like mixed it up a little bit with other Smash games, because Brawl was kind of fast for it being like that clunky. I mean, it had fast gameplay, even though it was clunky as fuck. Like, I could watch some pro Brawl gameplay. It was fun to watch, but
Right.
it wasn't like as fun to watch as like Melee. But that's because of me being a competitive nature. So I could say, from a casual's perspective, like Ultimate did a fucking great job, but I don't think they will continue. They won't make a Ultimate 2. What I'm going to think is they gonna make a new Smash game. I don't think that they will go anywhere competitive, but they will make it a little bit more pleasing for other Smash competitors.
I think that's gonna be hard, because what is the line there? Like, what do you do to do that? Like, what, do Ultimate but you add wave dashing? I mean, just like, I think if you take, and forget wave dashing, if you take Ultimate and you make less characters floaty, because every character in Ultimate is floaty. I
Yeah,
don't know if that's the same for Smash 4 Brawl. From what I've seen, it is. Like,
everything
no
was floaty
character's
after Melee
fastball.
on 6.4.
Yeah, every character floats, you know,
Yeah.
and stays in the air for so long, and that makes it impossible to have combos, and it just makes the game so much less cool and fun from like I'd say from a casual perspective, but I think you just don't know that it's not like that until you've experienced like Melee. So I don't even know how you like advance. How do you make an Ultimate that Melee players are okay with? Like, that just seems impossible. I feel like there's no, unless they make Melee 2, which is just Melee with more characters, and
Yeah.
it's the exact same mechanics, I don't see any way that you ever please Melee players, or you please Smash 64 players. We're just so spoiled with the depth of the game that there's just no way. I think Nintendo just has to accept that, like, we're going to exist and not play the new games, and that's going to pretty much be it.
I mean, they don't have to like make a tag that's directly from another game, so they can just like invent a new tag. Where it won't be like too hard for the player base they want to reach, but also make it so advanced players can actually master it. And what makes a competitive game like Melee really appealing for competitive players? Because there are so many tags you can like exploit and masters that you get like a whole new way of playing, a whole new feel of playing.
Right.
At first, when I started Melee, it felt really clunky until I even knew I can't just like always dash by just like tilting a little bit to the left or to the right. So you just like have to put your stick like directly to the right.
Yeah, you don't get buffer, which makes the game feel a lot more clunky at first, but then once you get used to it, it feels really good.
Yeah.
Just have complete control over your character. Whereas like when I play Ultimate, I do feel like I'm floating around a lot, and like
There's
with
too
the
much free
buffer, I
time.
feel like I'm not timing things right. It doesn't feel like I have perfect control over my character.
Yeah.
Like I feel like my character's sort of responding to what I'm doing. But like Melee, I feel like my character does not move or do anything unless I tell it to do it that way exactly, which is like a higher level of control that makes the game, I think, a lot more fun.
Yeah, and that's like the problem with every competitive game nowadays, because reducing the skill cap is actually preventing more players than like adding more players, because casual players that like a new title of a competitive game, they're just going to buy it anyways because they love the series, whether it has like an insane tag or not.
Right.
And I don't know, we've come to an age where the competitive nature has really risen to a high standard, because everyone is playing like at least like 1 or 2 competitive games.
Yeah.
And there are like so many people that are just like completely addicted to competitive games, and they can't like play casually anymore.
Yeah.
Like for me, it is
I think
really
I'm one
hard
of
to play.
those.
Yeah, for me it's like I can take like Super Mario 64 as an example. It is a totally casual game, but it has like some tags that are not intended to be like that, but it just makes the game like to speedrun so much more fun. The first day I played,
it was awesome to speedrun and to watch.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and I can understand that. I don't even think I could do it though. Like my addiction to like competitive games is pretty bad. Like I don't think I would enjoy speedrunning Super Mario 64 because there's no like direct competition against anyone. Like every game that I find interesting is like you have to directly at that moment be competing with somebody. Like for things aren't satisfying unless there's a winner and loser. And I think that's so many games now.
Yeah, but yeah, the thing is like I don't know. For me, like speedrunning is really competitive because you have to take an assumption because there are like thousands of players that play much more like you, but they just like do a certain tech way better than you, and that's why they achieve like a better time.
Right.
You always see like melee players going into the what's called with this target thing, smash the target.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they just like hop into target. They just try to beat their PB. Even like I've seen X doing it and just like being really hyped about it and achieving a great time. Like Leffin was doing a Iron Man speedrun on melee.
Yeah. I tried those.
It is like really good. Like speedrunning is also like very competitive, like because there's a whole leaderboard, so you can see where certain players did better than you. You don't have to like take an assumption that you don't have to improvise every time, like you do in every other competitive game.
Yeah, I get that, and I think that's an interesting point about the competition. I think when Slippy Ranked comes out and there's like a ladder board and a leaderboard, I think then it'll be essentially the same thing in my mind. Like there's no like, right now Melee's super relative, where like you can say a player is better than you, but you can beat him. Or a player can be better than someone that's better than you, but you could still beat that player. Like it's so relative with who beats who. I think having a leaderboard will help that. I definitely get that, but I think when there's not like direct competition at the moment, I just think it becomes less fun. Like imagine you're like a racer, you know, like in real life, you run really fast on the track, all right? And instead of the way that they do races now, where they line everybody up and you all run at once and the one who crosses the finish line first wins, imagine every single like racer races on their own. So just like one racer goes on their own and they see how fast they can go, and then the next person goes an hour later and they don't see each other. They just find out who won afterwards. Yeah. Like that just doesn't seem. I feel like that's like what speedrunning is. It's like you're not really against anyone. There's no like win or loss in the moment. You just sort of compare yourself after, which I personally don't find as fun. I liked like the instant direct competition, but I do think you're right that like it's very objective who's better. You can't argue that someone who has like 19-minute PB in 16 star in Super Mario is better than someone who has a 22-minute PB. Like you just can't argue. Yeah. Whereas in Melee, that difference you could argue about it. Like they could beat them in certain circumstances. Yeah. So I think that part of it's cool. I just don't find it as interesting personally to compete in because there's not, that direct competition.
Yeah, I can totally understand it. Like competitive, it just like varies in so many ways. It is really hard to just like define what a competitive nature is, because there are like so many, like in 2020 there are like so many ways you can define a competitive players, but you're not able to just get every competitive player. Like you can't like reach every competitive player's nature. So
yeah, I mean you can compete in literally anything. Yeah, so basically what I was saying about the mental required to get good is that you have the beginner's mentality where you are okay with losing and you get better at the game because you look at everything that beats you and you learn from it and how to play better against it. But once you're decent at a game and you have a way of playing it that you've decided, it becomes a lot easier to make excuses for why you're losing. Like, oh, I lost to this fox because he played in a cheesy way. Or I lost to this player because they did something that, was dumb and I shouldn't have lost to, or whatever. And you stop taking in the things that are beating you and stop paying attention to them and sort of get stuck. So I think for being good at melee, you have to always want to be better at melee. Like, you can't get to a point, no matter how good you think you are, you cannot get to a point where you just think like, okay, I'm at this and I can just get good on my own and just play a lot and I'll get better. Because
Yeah.
you just, if you do improve, it'll be super slow. And it's just not the way to go about it. The way to go about, like, mentally getting good at melee is literally just every single thing that beats you, every single thing that takes you by surprise, you need to learn how to deal with it better. Or how to not put yourself in that situation. It doesn't matter if you 4-stock someone and you only get hit once in that game and they're considered a decent player and you're like, oh my god, I'm so good. Like, there is definitely, even within that game, there are mistakes that need to be shored up. And they're not minor. Like, people have that impression, like, once you're really good, the mistakes that you're making are minor mistakes and you're only correcting these little things and that's what's making you a tiny bit better. In reality, you're probably still making big mistakes. Even if you're beating decent players, you're probably still doing some shit really poorly. Unless you're like top 10 in the world, and even they are doing some shit poorly. So it's like, you just have to never get out of that mentality of, what is beating me? Why is it beating me? How can I play against it better? Because the moment that you stop thinking about that, you stop actually improving. You just sort of get more and more stuck in what you think is good.
All right, yeah, I can totally agree with that. And basically, it is so much help. It is so helpful to lose. Like, for me, like, losing is really great for me because
right,
I can acknowledge that I have played poorly, because on these games you can't make any types of excuses. If you lose, you just did poorly.
Yeah.
And that's like one point what kept me away from team games for a long time. No, it's because I'd rather, like, if I would lose, I'd rather look for mistakes from my opponents than rather just look at myself.
Yeah.
Because it's just like how the human psychology works. Because at some point you have like a fake pride, I would say so.
Yeah.
Like, the pride you have in, like, not admitting that you made a mistake is actually like the worst thing to have. Like, not acknowledging your mistakes is...
Becoming better at a team game requires a much more specific mental.
Yeah.
Like, to get good at, like, Rocket League is the example I have, or like Valorant, you have to pay attention to only what you're doing. Understand that you can't control your opponents, you can't control your allies. You just have to pay attention to solely what you're doing, and only look at your mistakes and what you could have done better. And I think that's really hard to do when there's 9 other people in the game, or in Overwatch there's 11 other people in the game. Just like, to only pay attention to the things that you are doing and why they're right or wrong is really difficult, because you can have the most kills on the team and still be able to do stuff better, but it's really easy to blame your team. So I think that makes it a lot harder to get better at those games, because the mental that you need to say, okay, I don't care if I got the most kills on the game, I still have things to improve on, is a much harder mental than when you play a one-on-one game and you're like, well, I can't really blame anyone. Like, this is clearly my fault.
Yeah, the thing is, like, if anyone is playing like team games, they should directly, like, think about them. They should not rely on any teammates at first until they reached a peak of a certain level where they can, like, actually tell the difference of them doing poorly and not.
Yeah. I've tried that mental. It's hard. Like, I've tried for Valorant, where I will just play. Once you die, you don't pay attention to what other people are doing, because it doesn't matter. You don't control them. Like, just solely focusing on playing well on your own. And I've tried keeping that mental, and it's impossible. Like, when you are in, like, a ranked Valorant game and you have a player on your team who is 0-18, has never gotten a kill and has not contributed anything to the game, it is near impossible to, in your mind, to go, it's my fault. I could be playing better. It's so difficult. And I respect people who get really good at team games, because to be able to have those kind of, you know, teammates and those kind of distractions from getting better, and to still be able to want to get better and to blame everything on yourself so that you do get better, is really hard.
Yeah.
I think it's much easier to get good at a solo game when you can just look at only what you're doing wrong and not have to think about other people.
Yeah.
So I definitely respect people who get good at team games. I don't think that's something I can really do at a high level. I enjoy playing like Valorant. I think it's fun, but I would never try and play it like competitively like I do with Melee, because it's so hard to put yourself in that mental state where you want to get better and ignore what other people are doing.
Yeah. I can totally understand. Like Valorant, I've like a roommate. He was my roommate. I moved to my mother again. And yeah, he actually like starts competing at Valorant now. He's playing with a team, and he switched like to many teams because he needs to find like a decent team for himself. And it's just actually like pretty interesting, like how his mindset overall even changed. Because at first he was like always blaming his teammates, but at some point I started like seeing the different. Because he started like blaming himself, and that's what made him even like start training. Because at close better, I used to play with him a lot. I have never played ranked because I had like a hand injury, and then I stopped playing like shooting games. And it wasn't nothing big, just like a cut with a knife because like of construction work. And yeah, he actually he plays Immortal, and it is really insane to see him like being that good since he like changed his mindset, because it is really hard to acknowledge like your own faults in a team game, but being able to like being at a level to tell like what people are doing wrong is like even greater than just like acknowledging your own problems, because you can just straight up go into your own bots and just like check out what you could have done better. Or if you see a teammate perform badly, and you will peak at that certain spot, but you're not peaking at, let's say Valorant as an example. Some spots you're not peaking because you don't expect anything to happen, but if a teammate will die, you will immediately think that you will peak that way. Because it is mostly like in every competitive game, or how every competitor thinks at a certain level is that they are dominant over other person, and that's what makes competitive its nature, like because of like having people better than other like players, and that's what like drives even people to just like get at a high level at any type of game or any type of sports. That's like basically always has been like the pure dominance. I don't know if you can call it like dominance, but yeah,
I
like
get
better
the
at
idea.
all
I think
people.
another difficult part about improving and focusing on yourself improving is knowing what not to improve upon and take personally, because sometimes shit just happens. Like a good example in Valorant is like sometimes there is a player sitting in a super weird spot where they shouldn't be, and you're not going to check it, and you're going to walk by and you're going to get headshot. And that's something that, like, if you have that mentality of trying to get better, you're going to blame on yourself, and then you're going to over check. Like, you're going to check every corner you come across, and it's going to make you worse. And the same thing for Melee. Like, you are going to every once in a while play against like the campiest player in the world who doesn't play the game like any other Melee player, and it's really hard to say like, okay, that is not something that's like I need to specifically improve upon. Like, I can play it out slightly better, right? But at some point you just have to accept that not everything's your fault. And I think that's a big problem with that mindset, is you go all in on everything is my fault. When you try and get good at a team game, the way that you get good is ignoring your team and accepting that everything that happens in the game is your fault and that you can get better. And then sometimes the issue with that is sometimes things aren't necessarily your fault. And so since it's that all or nothing mentality, like most people who play team games are either my teammates suck and I'm good, but they're the reason why I'm losing, or I suck and I'm the reason that I'm losing, no matter how well I'm doing. Whereas like in reality, it's pretty in between. Like there are a lot of times where your teams will lose you the game,
Oh yeah,
over
totally.
certain things. And it's really hard to differentiate that and to not blame that on yourself. And I think that's why there's a lot of tension in team games. People switch teams so much, especially look at like League of Legends. Players end up hating each other when they play together because of the tension of that. They switch teams every single season. The top teams, even the best performing teams in the league, are switching up the rosters because it creates such a weird environment where everyone's trying to blame themselves, but also sort of blaming others.
Yeah.
And I think it's a really difficult. I stay out of it. I don't try and get good at Valorant. I get good at 1v1 games because there's just getting good at team games is so difficult mentally. Like the
Yeah.
mental fortitude that you need to have to blame yourself, but not all the time, but at the right times, but also acknowledge teammates, is crazy. I think it's crazy.
Yeah, like I don't know. My mental, like on even like on League of Legends, I played League of Legends for a fairly long time. That's basically the competitive game that kept my competitive nature. And yeah, I was always tilting. I had like 15 plus accounts getting banned, but I didn't care because you can just like buy an account for a few bucks.
Yeah.
And yeah, but then I started playing Tekken and Dragon Ball Fighter Z. At first, I started like playing Dragon Ball Fighter Z. At first season, I really like got really dragged into the game, and I reached quite some high elo. Like there was like 1 million points as the highest rank, and there was I was sitting at like 700,000 points, and like you win like 3,000 to 4,000 per match if you don't have an awful win rate. And yeah, that's when my mental just like completely changed, because at first I was like really tilting at fighting games because there are so many, like there's some every game like has this drop killer move.
Yeah.
Like in League of Legends there are champions that totally like destroy scrubs, but they're so fucking bad, and that's like the stuff I had to acknowledging like how to like, or like having the desire to improve is like the best thing to have at a mental. Like I was at some point when I was like, why should I learn this in Tekken? Why should I learn this in Tekken? And then after I learned like all the time, I started actually to get like fun. And then I want to just like test out different fighting games and just like learn all of them, because learning at some point gets really fun. If you love the thing that you learn. If it's a fighting game, you love to learn it. If you love the game.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's like the thing. Starting like at first you have to learn how to properly learn like a game. It is like Sajan was talking about this, and he's just like a fighting game YouTuber, and he really like gets up some really good points. Like he also does podcasts. That's where I draw like the inspiration from. And he's really like he's pointing out some things I don't expect them to point out, because yeah, learning how to learn, it sounds so fucking silly, but it is. If you like think about it, it really makes sense.
Yeah, I did a whole video with a pro player on how to approach learning, just how to learn how to learn, because it's so important for Melee in specific that you learn in an efficient way for getting better. Because if you're learning in a way that's not, helping you out, it's just gonna make things harder for you in the long run. And I think I shared that experience with you. Like I used to play League of Legends a lot and Rocket League a lot, team games, and CS:GO too. And you just get like so tilted and upset at things outside of your control. And I think I switched to Rocket League playing 1v1 matches first. And that helps your mental so much when you can only blame yourself and you really focus on improving, that like I can go back to team games now and not get tilted. And it's crazy to compare to like my younger self, where I just got like pissed at everything that would happen that wasn't specifically my fault, to be so much like stronger mentally now because you have that experience. So I think at the very least, like spending some time trying to get good at something like Melee makes you so much mentally stronger. And I think it translates into other things. I think Melee players, like really dedicated ones, are some of like the chillest people in social interactions and like least panicky and that kind of thing, because they just like, they're used to just chilling out. Like they're fine with situations and, you know, letting things happen and not freaking out about everything. And, you know, it's hard to explain, but I definitely feel like in general, just Melee has helped me chill out a lot in general and just get better at like life, which is a weird thing to say, that like trying to get good at a 1 versus 1 20-year-old kids party game has made me like better at social interaction. But like the things that like not getting upset and forcing yourself to not get upset and to focus on yourself, things that teaches you mentally, and like the strength that builds in your mind helps you a ton.
Yeah, totally. Because I can totally agree with you, because like when I started playing like League of Legends and like I used to play like CSGO. I have like 800 hours of CSGO. I used to play like all the team games, and the mentality you get from them is just basically blaming others.
Yeah.
That's the mentality you get and you grow on to like have.
Yeah.
But that is, if you take like a deep look into it, it is a really childish mindset, to be honest, because there are some certain points where they make mistakes, but you can't just like always blame them for fucking up, because they're still human, you know?
Yeah.
And at one day you have like the biggest performance in Melee, and at the other day you just play like a bot.
Yeah.
It is, you know, being constantly good is really hard. Being constantly good is really hard, and at team games you have to like have a certain type of understanding that like not everyone can like perform how they used to be.
Right.
And that is like something that even like in real life like made me chill, because at construction someone was fucking up and I had to like fix some stuff. I was like, all right, it can happen to me. It happens to everyone. It happened like even to me. Like, why the fuck should I like be that robotic fuck that just like accepts only success?
Yeah, no, you're totally right. I think like that teaches you a lot about it, and like in life in general, like when people fuck up, it's just like you have to like, it's the same thing. It's weird to compare it to League of Legends, but like when you have a teammate who's clearly having a bad game, that doesn't mean that they're always bad and that you need to treat them like shit. And once you learn, you know, that just like how to treat people decently, even if they're fucking something up for you, it makes you such a better person.
Yeah, totally.
Like working with people and someone screws something up, if you man, I gotta imagine when all the people who grew up on CSGO and that kind of thing, I imagine they're getting there, but once they get into the career fields, it's gonna suck for a lot of people when they still have that mentality of like blaming really hard for any minor thing that like goes wrong. The person, like, that's gonna suck to be in that mentality. And I'm glad I had something like Melee or like Rocket League 1v1s where it teaches you, you know, not to have that mentality, because I think that would have screwed up some serious things if you grow up with it being okay to, you know, blame teammates and to just flame people for having bad games.
Because like, having this like toxic behavior is really bad, because in team games like the sportsmanship is so essential. Like on fighting games you don't give a fuck if no one's gonna fist bump you, or if they're doing a tweet about you. I'm just like laughing my ass off if someone will do that, you know. But like on team game, dude, the fucking guy you're blaming is sitting like right next to you, you know. You can't just like keep the mentality like down, like keep your team's mentality down because of you having like this behavior. You should definitely change this behavior. And of course, like some teammates, they can just like get into fights or have like a beef sometimes. That's totally fine, but if they have to work, they're working, and that's like, if it's like esports, they have to just like draw like everything aside and change. Like it is like sports. Every competitive game has like esports. So having like sportsmanship, proper sportsmanship is really like essential. And like changing the mental to just accept poor performances. Like if a guy on League is just like straight up intings, he's like 0-7 and I don't know, gave their AD carry, I don't know, 5 kills. It's basically lost. Like giving them 2 kills is basically lost at a high level.
Right.
And yeah, that you don't see a team kicking out a person just because of performing poorly one game.
Yeah.
They just even like get dragged to the next game, even though they have backup. It is what it is. Like you should be consistent at a certain type of level, yes. But if you have a bad day, you can't do anything about that.
Yeah, and it doesn't help if people are rude about it. Like at the end of the day, you're not making the player better. You're just making them feel worse, which is more likely to make them play worse. So it's really selfish. Like the flaming people, like all it is, like when you flame someone, you're not flaming them to make them play better. You're not flaming them to make your teammates play better. You are flaming them because you are upset and you want to get it out in a way. Yeah. So it's just like blaming teammates in that way is just like it's just a selfish way of dealing with how you're upset. And I think once you realize that people have bad days, people don't always play well, and you stop blaming other people, you sort of get past that selfish mindset of I need to get this anger out at this person. I think that makes you a better person, learning that. All right, well, I have to go pretty soon, so
all right.
I'm gonna say goodbye. Thank you for having me.
I should thank you because you were answering pretty fast, and you actually, like, even though if I'm not like a big streamer or some shit like this, you still came by and just like talked as if it would be like something, as it would be a big streamer.
Yeah, doesn't matter. It was fun to talk about everything. I definitely learned some things that I didn't know. Definitely, you're right. I've never thought about like the mindset of not blaming teammates and how that helps you in like actual life. I've never thought about the fact that I learned that, but it's actually pretty cool to think about.
Yeah, totally. Like, I don't know. I just really love to talk about like expanding my knowledge about like competitive stuff, because even though you just hear a pro player talking, you just get so much knowledge from it. And if like more people that like start to get into competitive stuff, if they like get steps how to like improve, they should be starting by not even touching the game at first and be like mentally stable to just accept.
Yeah.
Okay, that's it for today. I hope you liked the podcast. In the future it will be like a lot better, but the audio file / video file, it all just got fucking corrupted. It's kind of sad because yeah, I wish for my second video it would be like a lot better, but I don't give a fuck right now. Basically, yeah, if you wanna see me like talk about competitive games, just go to my stream. I stream on Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, it varies on Saturday, and Sunday from 7 PM to 0 PM, almost 0 PM at like GMT 2 times. So basically just drop in, say hello. If you wanna see another podcast, just let me know. And I also got like a Discord server, link in the description. See ya.